all is well with you. I was like, who the fuck is this? I mean, the message is, from Mike, but I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck? Like, at least, like,
don't hope all is well with me.
Yeah, that is true. I take offense at that. Like, I know you don't hope that.
Cast Iron Balls, a podcast about sports, and definitely not Brett Baer and his wife and their houses. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here, too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
This week is taking forever because I'm so excited about everything.
Tonight is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. Just 1 week until Christmas, although less than 1 week until the best part of Christmas, which is Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, of course, the superior day to Christmas itself, in my long-standing and correct opinion.
Is that the consensus view, or is that just you?
I don't know. That's my opinion.
I love Christmas Eve, but as an adult, on Christmas, I don't do shit. It's the one day of the year where I'm like, nope, not doing shit, not doing it.
Because you already did the shit. You did all of the shit leading up to that day.
I do so much leading up to it. It's the one day that I'm like, nope, not getting dressed.
Christmas always feels like a letdown by like 11 o'clock in the morning to me. And then I don't like, again, I will do it. I will do nothing. But I don't like enjoy doing nothing the way that other people are much better at just doing nothing.
You did fine at the beach doing nothing.
If the nothing is like outright relaxing and reading books and stuff, that's fine. It's when it's like I got to sort of like I have a duty to play the new video game or whatever, and then we got to watch the TV, and then it's like I don't know.
Well, there's football on Christmas this year.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. Christmas is great, obviously. It's just that the Christmas Eve just full of all of that.
I make lasagna. You get to eat lasagna on Christmas.
Anticipation is the fun day. And then Christmas morning is fun, of course, also. Abe, it's time for you to live bet the games. Revision, I believe in last week's or earlier this week, I suggested that you were below 500. That was not the case, and I apologize to you and your honor and all of our listeners for possibly telling a fib about your situation. You're now 19-16.
Look at me.
3 games clear of 500. It's a long road, though. We're going to be doing Abe Live-Bets the Games forever. And it doesn't ever end. There's not going to be a cutoff point where you stop live betting the games. In February, you'll be live betting NBA games. That it could be trouble, is what I'm saying.
I know it's a endless runway here, but I think I'm peaking just at the right time.
Yep.
You're going to get well clear of that 500 and never look back.
That's right.
We've got 2 bowl games happening tonight, Abe. We've got the Boca Raton Bowl at FAU Stadium in Boca Raton, Florida. I wonder if Seinfeld and Costanza's parents are hanging out and taking the game in.
I think they're dead.
Down there. It's Western Kentucky versus James Madison. JMU, of course, beat UNC earlier this year, 70-50. They're the team that hemorrhaged like 20 players to Indiana.
And a coach.
Kurt Signetti grabbed everybody and said, "Pack it up, boys. We're going to Indiana. We're going to be a playoff team." And they listened to him. None of those dudes are playing tonight, obviously. But Western Kentucky, they are plus 7.5. But you have to pick this game straight up.
James Madison sounds like the right pick here. I think I was reading an article today about some college game day exec who got shit canned for inappropriate behavior.
I saw that article existed.
I did. I read the whole thing.
And I think he went to James Madison. So I'm going to...
Sounds right.
He was like a frat boy over there. James Madison.
Taking JMU. JMU currently leading 17-14 in the third quarter.
Oh, wow. Close game.
Did that article that you read strike you? I forget the dude's name. It doesn't matter. I mean, it seems like he did inappropriate.
Right? Is his name Fitting? Something Fitting.
I don't know if you say so.
Yeah.
I read it 47 times less than an hour ago, and I just didn't care to file it away. It's just not going to stick in my brain.
It was weird because like the headline and the way that at least either it was like a notification or I don't know how I came about it, but it sounded like this person was fired like weeks prior to the start of college game day last year. And now they have all the information. And I thought it was going to be a big thing. I mean, there were a lot of like behavior that was not appropriate, but I thought, but they were also adding random things that didn't make sense. Like, you know,
his name is Lee Fitting, by the way. I just looked it up.
Okay. But yeah, they would also, like, I don't know, the way that the article is written, it's like they would like include grievances, like that one department of ESPN had that they weren't getting all the food that the game day people.
Right. That was my. I mean, I'm not saying that he didn't do misbehavior and that he wasn't maybe something of a creep, but the presentation of the whole thing felt like, oh man, we're gonna find out some awful shit about this dude, and it mostly just seems like. I mean, not to go the full Kavanaugh. It seemed like he liked to drink beer and talk about chicks, which, you know, if you're the boss, maybe don't drink so much beer and talk about chicks so much, obviously.
There were a couple of examples that they raised that weren't good, like with like you want to get a room, and he tried to walk that back by saying conference room, but he likely meant like the first thing.
Right, he was probably, or he thought he was being hilarious, right? But also, if you are the boss, you cannot be hilarious in that fashion.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And also, you can never be hilarious in a way where if the person responds earnestly, and it's more likely than not that you would take them up on the earnest response, right? Like, if he's joking about getting a room, but then she's like, yeah, all right, I mean, I guess if it's good for the career, let's do it. And then he's like, oh, it's just kidding? Like, if that's not your response?
Yeah, right. Which is basically like, yeah, that's right. It's like one of those, it's like a fishing expedition and you can deny it later. But it kept on happening over and over and over again. What was weird with the article also is that like 3/4 of the way through, they added this part about like he was behind the Emmy scheme where they would falsify names so that they could give like on-air talent like the actual Emmy
right, which also
hardware.
It also felt like a big to-do about nothing to me. Then when that story broke a year or two ago, like that to me was like, it's not like they were cheating to get Emmys. They were just sort of cheating to get Emmys to people.
Right.
Like they wanted to bend the Emmys rules so that Lee Corso could have an Emmy on his shelf,
right,
rather than some production assistant who probably didn't do half the shit that Lee Corso. You know, like they're just trying to get their talent Emmys in categories that their talent didn't technically qualify for.
Right,
and
it's more
breaking the rules, but like, is it a crime
Breaking
against
the
humanity?
rules.
I don't fucking know.
Right, but I imagine like the double whammy of it is probably what caused them to be fired. Like, you know, like this college game day, you may have played a role in making this juggernaut, you know,
right.
But it's like we're like at cruising altitude at this point. We don't actually need you anymore. And so, like, if you're...
That's right. We got McAfee. We don't need you behind the scenes anymore.
Right.
McAfee's driving this bus.
Right. It's like replace one frat boy with another. But, like, it's like you're making us look bad, and it's like diminished returns at this point. This is like the plastic surgery thing where it's just, all right, you've gone too far. Fuck off.
Well, good news is WWE still exists, so there's a soft landing for him anyway. So it's all good.
Somebody made some fitting joke about how he landed at WWE. That's why I remember the name.
Yeah. All right. And then game 2 tonight, yet to kick off, is the Art of Sport LA Bowl, hosted by Gronk at SoFi Stadium. I don't know what to tell you. That's just what it's fucking called. It's the Art of Sport LA Bowl. And I looked up. It took me a few minutes, actually. Bad job by the marketing folks at Art of Sport. I went to the Art of Sport LA Bowl, hosted by Gronk website, and couldn't figure out what the fuck Art of Sport was. And so then I had to Google what is Art of Sport, and it's like a brand of like Axe body spray and
oh my god,
like it's a whole line of modernly branded body washes and different like accoutrement for taking care of your hygiene situation.
Like, do they give you the musk of having played a sport, or they're preventing that from happening?
Yeah, I think they're trying to avoid those sorts of stenches, generally speaking.
Okay.
But they're not like over the top dudely branded, but they are sort of like Dove for Men, that sort of aesthetic.
Okay.
Rather than the Sasquatch branded stuff or whatever. I mean, that's too, why am I doing a commercial for Art of Sport?
I don't know.
They didn't send me material like the Southern Tier Brewing
You also
Company
haven't
did.
used it ever.
That's right.
Yeah, certainly not.
Is this a similar? Didn't Jimmy Kimmel have a present? Like, Jimmy Kimmel had some bowl where like he was involved with it, like this Gronk thing. I wonder if it's a similar.
They've got to do something, right? I mean, because we've got the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and they cook the Pop-Tart, and the MVP of the game gets to pick which Pop-Tart lives and which Pop-Tart dies, or something.
And the trophy. Did you see the trophy?
Yeah, the trophy is like a working toaster.
Yeah,
so that
you
can
got to
cook
commit
your
to the gimmick.
Pop-Tarts on
Yeah,
it.
that's great. Yeah,
Gotta have gimmicks. This one is just Gronk, which is a pretty good gimmick. Like, if you're going to have a gimmick, fucking Gronk. That's cheap. He does those commercials.
That's right.
He's a cheap buy. We've got Cal at Cal versus UNLV in SoFi Stadium there in Inglewood, California. Cal had one of those very cuspy sort of years where they surprised a bunch of people and almost won a few games. And then, of course, had great success on social media with whoever's running their social media is doing a good job leaning into the hippies who love football sort of thing.
right.
That's a 3.5 point game. Cal plus 3.5. Who you got in that one, Abe?
UNLV is a school that perpetrated that fraud on that poor quarterback, right? That forced him to leave.
Yeah.
And just lost to the whatever game they played in.
They lost to Boise State in the conference championship game.
So it shows me that they do whatever it takes to win. So I'm going to say UNLV has the advantage. I'm going to go with them.
Look at you, taking two favorites tonight to try to push yourself to 5 games over 500 like a fucking coward. That's what those are cowardly picks. All right, let's open up the WGAS News SportsBag. Plenty of headlines generated in the world of sport the last couple of days, and we can talk about some of those. The Aaron Rodgers... This will go very quickly, but the Aaron Rodgers documentary, 3-episode series that's debuting on Netflix, I think later this week, possibly. It comes out soon. Some has leaked or somebody has seen it. There was a write-up in the Hollywood Reporter of like 10 big revelations from the Aaron Rodgers documentary, and it inspired me. I don't know if I will do this officially, but I want to put Rodgers quotes up against like famous philosophers and see how they stack up.
You should let me do that, and you get to be the fucking hot shot.
It won't be pop quiz hot shot because it's going to be way too easy to tell.
Right.
Is
It's
this
like
Aaron
the
Rodgers?
It's the opposite of the whack shit or wacky shit, where like it could be either way, and like this would become like obvious that it's a Aaron Rodgers quote.
Right, because he's. Just based, I mean, to be fair, this is just based on poll quotes that people are posting, and apparently I have a natural predisposition to hate anything that Aaron Rodgers says. But he seems like such an egotistical and self-centered and bordering on narcissistic type personality, just based on the way that he talks and presents himself. And, maybe it's the media's fault, which is what I'm sure that he would say, and I'm just a hater. There's a quote, and it's in part, it's funny because I've been reading the Marcus Aurelius, it's in such stark opposition to something that stood out in the Aurelius that I'm going to read. I'm going to read the Rodgers quote, and then I'm going to read the Aurelius quote. This is Rodgers, to be clear. I'm just sitting here reminded of how nothing in life is a coincidence. End quote. I'm going to stop there for a moment.
Okay.
When people, I have such an aversion to people insisting that everything is ordered.
Right.
That you can find the truth of everything by acknowledging that nothing is a coincidence, that everything happens for a reason, right? Like that is some sort of automatic trigger in my mind that says this is a bad person or this is a person with bad ideas.
Right.
A lot of what Rodgers is talking about seemingly on his journey, and anytime anybody talks about where they are on their journey, it's like, okay, I'm not going to like what's coming next. There's just something about, whatever. I'll just continue with the quote. Think about the reason why you're here. The journey why you're here makes no sense. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, all the things that had to happen for you to be here just in this lifetime. It makes me remember my life matters. Your life matters. All of this matters. We're here for a reason to do something special. This is a top-of-the-mountain experience. We're pushing ourselves to the edge with various medicines. Why? Because my life matters. Because I've got a host of ancestors backing me up. I've got the unseen world and the whispers of the universe telling me I matter, that I'm enough. Now,
Okay.
I've never done ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I've never done psychedelic drugs in general yet. But all other times that I've heard this talked about, when people talk about taking these psychedelics, it's about ego death. It's about recognizing that
You don't matter at all.
you don't actually matter, that the universe is this vast and chaotic place. And it is sort of remarkable and incredible and unlikely that you get to experience it. But what he's talking about here tells me that he missed the point.
Yes.
That whatever he went through on these drugs, he's kind of missed the point.
Or the effects are not long lasting. I sometimes
No,
wonder.
they are. They last. That's the thing
Yeah.
about psychedelics is that permanent change happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's supposed to be some sort of perspective shift. But if you are incapable of having your perspective shifted, then.
But okay, so how those hoarders, people at home, they have too much stuff, like not like a little stuff, it's just like overflowing into the.
So not just
three toasters,
not
three
just a
broken
couple of,
toasters.
not just a couple of toasters, but like hundreds of toasters is what you're saying.
Yeah, there are levels to this. You're like a YMCA hoarder. We're talking about like Michael Jordan level hoarders, and like if somebody, like a family member, if there's some sort of intervention and they cleaned it up, given enough time,
Right. 3 weeks.
back to where you were, right? So I wonder if Aaron Rodgers, his ego dies and he goes back to the same environment and he has all the same conditions that caused him to be a smug prick, and that ego reforms to be another. He would need to take this drug trip like every 30 hours. For him to keep it. Otherwise,
he would have to constantly be on ayahuasca.
Yeah, otherwise he goes back.
Yeah.
He needs to fix something else. Like there's something in his regular life that causes him to be like a smug prick.
Yeah. I wasn't
That
sure
thing
that
is him.
I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to watch this. But the quotes that have been unearthed by the Hollywood Reporter have suggested to me that I might be able to watch it and enjoy the fuck out of hating it.
It has all the makings of like a not self-aware, like just train wreck. Like it's gonna be hard to resist watching just to see like what an idiot he is.
Right. On the one hand, that was Aaron Rodgers. Everything matters. My life matters. Everything has been building to this. I exist at the tip of the spear of the entire purpose of every ancestor I've ever fucking had. Right? Like I am the reason that all has been building to this moment. And yes, also so are you. And I think that's how he justifies his stupid. It's like, yes, I'm a god, and so are you.
Yeah.
Right? Like
You're a god, and so am I.
Right. On the other hand, we have what I was reading earlier in the week from Marcus Aurelius. Quote, "In no great while you will be no one and nowhere, and nothing that you now behold will be in existence, nor will anyone now alive. For it is in the nature of all things to change and alter and perish, so that others may arise in their turn." So from everything matters, everything's been building to me, to, oh no, you're going to die soon, and so will everyone that you know, and in fucking 50 years, no one will remember who you are or why you were here.
Right, and also, I mean, I don't know. I'm coming to the defense of Aaron Rodgers, but like, it must be a very unusual experience to be like Aaron Rodgers, where like you are making so much money playing a sport that you love, and you have like a pretty charmed life. I mean, he makes it hard for himself, but like,
I'm sure he's just like the rest of us, just paycheck to paycheck.
Right. So like, for him to like say what you want about yourself, but for you to then extend and say like you blah blah blah, like shut the fuck up. You don't know, you don't know what other people are going through. So it's like you live a very unusual life.
No, he knows exactly what other people are going through. It's the same thing he is, because he's the only person, and everybody else is just the same as him. That's the thing about selfish people that is the most frustrating thing, is they don't find themselves selfish. If someone else did the shit they do to them, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's how people are.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they don't have a concept of anyone else.
Anyway, that's Aaron Rodgers versus Marcus Aurelius.
Wait, can I
Tune
guess
in-
which one is which? Oh, you already said it. Okay.
Tune in next week for more of that. Diego Pavia, Abe, the great Diego Pavia, CIB hero Diego Pavia,
Turnt.
has been granted eligibility for the 2025 season because an injunction was successfully granted to him so that he may play next season while this lawsuit proceeds over something that we talked about a couple of months ago, I think, where he's suing the NCAA, trying to say that his years in JUCO should not count against his eligibility in FBS football because they are two entirely different things, and the NCAA shouldn't have anything to say about what happened over here, over this entity over which they exercise no control whatsoever.
Right.
So this has not been decided, but an injunction has put in place that will, as of now, allow him to play next year.
Okay, so that's the part that I was a bit confused, because initially maybe the headline that I read made it sound like it was a done deal, but then reading further on, this was basically like a, for the time being, until the matter is resolved, your footing is that of one who's eligible, but
Right.
you know, the next year hasn't started yet, then right? So like they could in the spring.
Here's what I want.
Conclude.
Delay, right? This
Yeah.
is use the Trump tactic of delay until you are playing the season, and then it's too late, right? So you might as well play the season.
Right.
Then they can finish the lawsuit sometime year after that. Vanderbilt will have gone 11-1 in the league. They will have won the SEC and proceeded onto the playoff, and had a tremendous, greatest season of all time for Vanderbilt, and then be forced to vacate all of their wins when it is determined that he, in fact, was ineligible the entire time.
Why would you want that? That's terrible.
You would like them to have resolved this by next year. I mean, there's plenty of time. I do wonder though, like if they did make this permanent, this injunction, like say you're eligible, are you going to have players who have 3 or 4 years at JUCO and then like another 4 years in regular college? Like, are you going to have like 27, 28-year-olds?
Oh, yeah. We're going to there'd be 33-year-old retired NFL players coming back and saying, I'm going to trade in on my name. I can make a couple of $1 million in NIL money, and I've still got 2 years of eligibility because I played in JUCO for 2 years.
How many titles?
I think the answer here is that Stetson Bennett is going to be the starting quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, Stetson's starting this weekend.
Who do you think like Vince Young or like Tim Tebow could have gotten a couple more titles? Have they had like an endless number of eligible years? It seems like they could have. You could have some programs win a lot if you had like 6 or 7 or 8 years.
I mean, it's what strikes me about this is that it seems like every single time a player brings a lawsuit against the NCAA on these eligibility questions in the last couple of years, they win.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
You go in front of a judge in the last couple of years and you complain about NCAA eligibility stuff and transfer stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I mean this is ridiculous. Of course you win, this is how we get in this situation where the transfers happen all the time because you can transfer without having to sit out, right? And it doesn't cost you any of your eligibility.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I don't know. This is like somebody will eventually bring that suit and says, why is there this artificial limit on 4 or 5 years of eligibility in NCAA football? Why?
I mean, the whole concept is that the theory is that you have to be like an enrolled like undergraduate. Like they don't count graduate year. Like so if you went to
Graduate transfers play?
I know, but they still
They're
have
called
that
graduate transfers.
But they still have that. There's like a fixed number of years, and like you can redshirt.
Basically 5 years,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So if they just maybe came to the conclusion like you could do 4 + 3, like however long graduate school takes, like you have 7 years. I don't know where they're going to end up, but like they seem to they need to come up with some sort of firm understanding as to how many years you're eligible for, which would suck. I mean, you would never have like a Arch Manning situation where like, okay, I'll wait a year, maybe 2. Like I'm not waiting 4 years until Quinn Ewers decides to leave.
Is it? This is not in the news bag. This is pure rank speculation. Is it possible that Texas loses both of those quarterbacks next year? I think it is. I think that because I don't think that Ewers has, unless something weird happens here in the playoff, he has not proven that he's a first-round talent in the National Football League. He is too easily rattled. He does not look like the dude. He gets that red face and the 1,000-yard stare. That's not the guy.
But
He'd probably transfer.
I mean,
he would transfer. He's still got a year.
Right.
He would go Arch Manning to UNC. Maybe.
Right, but I mean,
Maybe? Belichick?
The Quinn Ewers thing, I mean, it's weird because I read something similar with Carson Beck, like his draft stock has gone down over the past few months, and since he's injured, maybe there's like an argument for him to come back also. But like Arch Manning, there's no argument for him to leave. Like, I mean, his job is going to be at Texas. If you're willing to sit 2 years, I mean, he could have gone to maybe not UNC, but any other school, like a big program.
The argument is the double B in Chapel Hill.
I don't think Bill Belichick is the pull factor many people think he is. Like, I don't think people are like, oh, can't wait until I play for old man Belichick.
I don't know. You've got Mike Vick hired at Norfolk State.
That's
You've got
I
Deion
think I'd
Sanders.
rather go play there.
yeah.
This is
Honestly.
it's a new era. You don't need, like, you're going to have these jobs that go to people who are not traditional X's and O's guys. They haven't come up through the coaching ranks. They're just guys who are good on social media and who are a name. Mostly it'll be former players. It happened in L.A. this year with the coach of the Lakers now. Was the ESPN TV guy, right?
Right. J.J. Redick, yeah.
J.J. Redick got that job because he's good on social media, basically.
Right. Yeah, but, I mean, there's juice there, like young enthusiasm or something. Like, Belichick offers none of that. Like, if you're a 19, 20-year-old, let's say you're like future Heisman winner, Lenora
I'm 27,
Sellers.
so it's very easy for me to imagine myself back in that 19, 20-year-old body.
Yeah, Bob wasn't young when he was young.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah, but would you want to play? Do you think like Bill Belichick has like a fun, like exciting college program environment?
Sounds
like
awful.
it just seems like it'd be like some weird shit happening over there.
If you say so.
Yeah.
Broader question is, if you look at, because we're talking about eligibility here, and you're like, this doesn't even tie into, like right now it ties into like you're a super senior, right? Like that's sort of the idea of having 5 years of eligibility. Like some kids take a little bit longer to matriculate their way through school. So 5 years sort of situation. That's tied to this notion of these programs as directly and intimately tied up with college, right? Like, I mean, it's this college football after all. It's no longer really that in the same way, and it's what we're running into with this transfer portal window and the fact that the playoff now goes into the third week in January, and it's fucking up the ability of these kids to play spring football if they want to stay on the team that might be in the playoff, right? So we have the Penn State backup quarterback who says that he's going to leave, but Franklin's like he's going to stick around and get us through the playoff at the very least. There's a number of other, I think Ra Thomas went in the portal today. He probably wasn't going to play for Georgia. It didn't matter. He's indefinitely suspended. But a number of, like Anthony Evans, I think, is going to go in the portal probably before we play our playoff game, if that hasn't already happened today. I know that the rumor was that he was going in because
Did you say Lee Evans?
No, Anthony Evans, number 5, the punt returner, who's had trouble finding the field as a wide receiver for Georgia. He might end up in the portal before we start our playoff run even. Because we're talking about how they need to fix this portal thing. And my reactionary response on Monday was fucking close the winter window and just force them into the spring window. And that's the only time that you're allowed to
That's what Aaron Murray thinks.
Make the transfer. I think that with a little bit more creativity, you can solve this just by reaffixing the college football schedule to the academic calendar in a smarter way.
But it can't fit.
It does fit.
But also, the academic calendar is not the same everywhere.
Right, but it's close enough. Stuart Mandel's been writing about this on The Athletic for a few years now. If you move people to week 0, right? We start the season in that week 0.
Which is like 4 weeks before the California schools start.
It's fine. They're already playing in week 1, and a handful of them already play.
I know.
Like Hawaii always plays a game in week 0 also. Like
that's like that last like a week before September, like late August. Is that
Yeah, so
It's that
it usually starts
basically the
Labor
last
Day
Saturday
weekend.
in August. Yeah.
So sometimes that's technically August, but it's always Labor Day weekend.
Right.
Yeah, but basically move the entire start of the season up 1 week. You don't actually have them reporting because they've already reduced the number. This is Mandel's point. They've reduced the number of contact practices in the last few years anyway, because it was shown to reduce injuries. Like basically, I mean, obviously, right? But if you limit the amount of physical contact that happens in practice, then you reduce the number of injuries. So they've already limited the number of practices that can happen. And so you can still start fall camp or the fall practices in that first week in August and then get the games in as early as the last Saturday in August. So just move up everything 1 week there. You could also do a thing where you have a sort of flexible schedule. This is probably the biggest reach from his perspective, but you put the conference championship game in what is now rivalry weekend instead of the week after that, right? And you make that a flex schedule and make that the 12th game of the season instead of the 13th game of the season. So as an example, Georgia and Alabama both make the conference championship game, right?
Right.
Then all you do is you have a flexible schedule that says, okay, now Florida was shorted one home game this season, so they're going to have a home game, and then we match them up with some other SEC team that isn't in the conference championship game that has an away game this week, right? So you sort of have this weird flex schedule for that last week of the season that allows you to have the last game for the conference champions not be an extra game, but instead be the end of their 12-game regular season, right?
Right.
And that gives you an extra week of flexibility also. And then the biggest advantage here is that you have the room to put the national semifinals on New Year's Day, which is how things need to be. That's what we need to get back to.
New Year's Eve is so much better.
I agree. New Year's Eve is better, but New Year's Day is permanently a college football day. The NFL doesn't play on New Year's Day.
And split them up. Like this year, they're splitting them up.
Sure, I think that it would be fine to have the national semifinal, both of them, a doubleheader on New Year's Day, 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. One of them happens in the Rose Bowl, period, right? The Rose Bowl game is always the national semifinal, and then you rotate among the other 4 major bowls. The other semifinal game and national title game, which happens the second Monday after New Year's, whatever that is,
put
right?
It on Saturday, as long as we're fucking with things.
I'm trying to give the compromise position here, and my compromise is national semifinal on New Year's Day, and then you play the final on the Monday, right? Because you give up that Saturday game because of the NFL and the playoffs and all of that. But if you play that on a Monday, you're probably not going to have a national title game too much later than January 8th, and the academic calendar for most schools says you can enroll as late as like towards the end of January or the middle of January. And so that gives you the opportunity to leave the transfer window, extend it for the playoff teams right into January as they are doing. They're giving the playoff teams extra time, but it does not put you in a situation where a kid has to leave his team in order to enroll with another team to make it to spring practice.
Just to clean that last part up, because that was going to be my question. How does this week changing solution fix the time that they have to commit to the other school? Like
a lot of schools, so there's a bunch of schools that say you have to be enrolled by January 15th or January 20th or something like that. The national title game this year is January 20th. Right. So that means that there will be players. If Penn State somehow makes it to the national title game, that kid who's entered the transfer portal, but who's the backup quarterback for Penn State, would have to leave the team before that in order to enroll in his new school by that date, because the national title game is pushed so far into the end of January. I also think it cheapens the whole thing. Like now we're in the middle of conference of the NFL postseason, right? You're drawing attention away from your sport because the bigger, more popular sport is having its most important weekends also.
Right.
Like to me, it makes a great deal of sense to get all of this wrapped up by no later than January 8th or so,
Right.
and just be done with it. And it allows you to let the kids transfer who want to transfer in that December window.
Now, at this point, it's just backup players who are not getting the time that they want on the field transferring, and it's awkward. But the product on the field is likely not impacted yet. Like I would imagine they would change that if it actually starts to have an impact. Like if a player got injured and that backup is no longer available, and the product on the field, is diminished as a result.
What happened in the SEC championship happened instead in
right.
our playoff game.
Yeah, that's right.
And
yeah.
Hi. Need to wash
Good
your
night.
face.
I love you. Have a good sleep. The alternative is, and I apologize, this is a total non sequitur. I cannot edit this in such a fashion as to make this sound like I'm responding to what Lori and Abe just said because the children interrupted us. But basically, the alternative to the rearranging the football calendar to once again more match the natural academic calendar is to just cleave this off from college entirely.
Yeah, they should do that.
It's not out of the realm of possibility with the way that the sport has gone. The professionalization of this sport, it continues to be a bit of an absurdity that these football programs have anything to do whatsoever with college, right? Like it's sort of an anachronism at this point.
I know, but the all the other stuff I'm willing to let go of, but I always thought the load-bearing pillar of college football is that the participants in these games are enrolled in the schools that they're representing, right? So if you remove that last link, the whole thing falls apart. Like you don't have anything anymore.
Right. Then it's just a semi-professional league that is. I mean, at that point, it's a totally professional league. That's sort of a minor leagues for
I know,
the
but
NFL.
then at that point, then you're gonna have stadiums like in Atlanta instead of Athens, where the school it's gonna become like you want at least to be tethered
because
to the school.
you would still trade on the brand, right? Like
Right.
and the University of Georgia football program would be licensing that name from the University of Georgia, right? Like it would become a licensing deal more explicitly instead of just what it is now, right? Which is it is basically a licensing deal. Kirby Smart is the highest paid public official in this, right? On
Highest
the
paid
state,
public employee.
highest paid public employee in name only. It's not like that money is coming from the athletic
Right,
department.
exactly.
It's revenue generated entirely in house. It's not coming from the state treasury or anything like that.
Right. I think the trade-off is not worth it. Like you're delinking what has always been there.
No, I agree. I think it would be awful. And what I'm saying is because that is one alternative to just say, look, why are we bothering to try to make this work in terms of the academics? Instead, go the other direction. Right.
I mean,
don't cleave it off from the schools, and instead figure out how to adjust the football schedule to more closely align with the academic calendar.
To me, like the simplest solution would be like these schools are already bending over backwards to enroll students that would not otherwise, not all of those students, but some of those students would not otherwise be able to enroll in those schools like academically, right? But because they are student athletes, they get a VIP entrance, right? So they have they bend the rules of how you normally would enroll.
VIP entrance and all online classes where they don't actually have to do any work.
Right. So to me, like the simple fix for that, if you're able to bend those rules to say like you don't actually have to have the SAT scores and the GPA scores that all the other students have to get in here, you can just, instead of being like middle of January enrollment, just make it first week of February if you're like transferring. Like then you wouldn't have to worry about like this situation.
Waive the whatever requirement for transfer athletes.
Right. They can enroll if you're like in the playoffs, have fun and then be available for all spring activities, and get ready for the fall.
The calendar fix just seems so easy to me. Like I don't know why you wouldn't do it. And also it reclaims New Year's Day. Yeah. And it fixes the stupid bowl situation too.
I mean, it's hot as balls last week of August, second to last week of August anyway. So like I do wonder though, like if some schools would be like, this is way too, like we don't want to be like out in the heat like 1 week early. Like do you think there's going to be a concern there? Like we don't want to just it's better to
No,
have.
because they're doing two-a-days that week anyway. If they're not getting ready for a game, they're doing their obnoxious practices, right? Like, whatever. All right, that's enough about that. Also on my list tonight in the WGAS News Bag. SportsBag. We have Falcons' Kirk Cousins has been demoted. He will now be the you like that backup quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix Jr. finally getting his chance to prove that he was worth a top 10 pick at the advanced age of like 23 or 24 years old, however old this guy is. This is after a win, by the way. This is after they went out to Las Vegas and defeated the Raiders.
I mean,
a thrilling 15-9 victory.
Technically a win, but it was a very bad win.
Cousins had a pretty good run there for a few weeks towards the start of the season. Has thrown 9 picks in the last month, something like that, and not completed a touchdown pass, I don't think, in 4 or 5 games.
One of the theories is that, Kirk Cousins is coming off a ACL injury. He's old as shit. And after the first few weeks where he found some success.
ACL or Achilles?
Maybe you're right. I thought it was the ACL, but maybe it's Achilles.
I don't know. Whatever. Yeah.
Some sort of injury, significant injury. And the first few weeks, even though he had some success, like defenses eventually figured out that he is immobile, like to the extreme. Like I think he does not move out of the pocket at all. So like basically he's a very fixed statue, and the defenses adjusted to that. They don't have to worry about him. I mean, he was never a scrambler, but not a lot of play action. I think they hardly do anything in motion. So it's a very constipated offense, and things have fallen apart since. So like it's not working, and that's why
not just 16 picks, which leads the league, but 12 fumbles, which also is tied for the league lead with Maker Bayfield. That's a lot of turnovers for one dude.
That's quarterback fumbles or
12
anyone
quarterback
fumbles.
Yes. I don't know how many were turnovers. I don't know how many were recovered, but he has fumbled the ball 12 times this season, which is
Did
crazy.
he not have big hands? Some of the quarterbacks are able to hold on to the ball no matter what.
He's not one of them.
Yeah, apparently not.
Falcons need to win probably their final 3 games of the season to win the division and make the playoffs.
Yeah. I think they got the Giants, so that should be an easy win. And then they have they flexed the Commanders games the week after. So it's going to be rookie on rookie. Interesting, the timing of this. The NFL flexed that game, the Commanders-Falcons game, before the Falcons said we're going to get rid of old man Cousins. I mean, I guess the Falcons are still in playoff contention, but they're in free fall. So like it didn't make sense initially to have Kirk Cousins trotted out against another former team and get his ass kicked. So maybe they had some inside information, or maybe they just got lucky. I don't know what happened there.
Well, I read a piece that said that the NFL declined to flex the Giants-Colts game into the spot that they eventually flexed that game into, despite the fact that it's the Giants' 100th anniversary season or something like that, so it's a special year, and that game would take place on the anniversary of the so-called greatest game ever played between the Colts and the Giants.
That's right, yeah, back when they were in Baltimore.
So, they could have had that to market that game, but the Giants are so wretched that even that prime marketing opportunity to go Giants-Colts was not enough to put the Giants into a national primetime spot on the Saturday.
That's remarkable. Kirk Cousins is going to end up costing the Falcons team like almost $100 million. I mean, maybe
seven wins, right?
Yeah,
so seven wins, and they're going to have to pay him at a minimum $100 million.
Right. Now,
for 7 wins.
They're thinking they may be able to salvage $25 million of that back, because next year it's basically very front loaded, so he's getting like $60+ million. This agent of his, they need to get that guy from College Game Day to make up some fake application so he can get an award, because this agent did a great job. $60+ million he's getting this year, and next year if a shitty team like a Titans or maybe the Colts or somebody wants like a shitty Kirk Cousins on the cheap for like $25 million, which is cheap now for quarterbacks. Yeah. The Falcons will be willing to part ways, but like at the very least they'll be down like 70 some odd million to this failed experiment.
Not great for Kirk Cousins.
Does that help?
It's great for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's bad for the Falcons.
The Falcons have no one cares about the Falcons and the Saints rivalry, but down here they try to make it a big thing. Like, they hate each other, those two franchises. And
It's the Falcons.
Yeah.
No one cares about the Falcons. No one cares.
I mean, those are a couple of poverty franchises.
Right. That
the
hate each other.
Saints
Basically,
people have cared.
Yeah,
Like
they've
that's
definitely
a thing.
hated each other for
Right.
fucking forever.
But no one's an actual Falcons fan.
no, there are plenty of Falcons fans down here.
They're lying.
But the GM for the Falcons, the current GM who made this boneheaded decision to, like, in March get Kirk Cousins off of like a significant injury, knowing full well that they had the 8th overall pick a month later, and then they doubled up on the quarterback. I think the Penix pick is fine. It's just like it doesn't make sense to have two quarterbacks a month apart and invest in this way. This guy was like 20 years in the Saints organization, and he came over to the Falcons just recently. And
A sleeper agent.
So the
I guess.
Falcons fans have this conspiracy theory that he's a sleeper agent for the Saints franchise. He's ruined them.
Yeah. All right. The NBA recently, last night maybe, wrapped up its in-season tournament.
Speaking of things no one cares about.
The trophy for the in-season tournament looks like a footstool. I don't know if anybody else noticed
No,
it,
I haven't seen it. I can't see.
but it looks exactly. This is not the picture that I'm showing now, but I saw it and it looks like a footstool. The in-season tournament last year was won. The inaugural was won by the Lakers, who then struggled to make the playoffs and then were eliminated, I believe, in the first round after succeeding in the play-in game. Last night or the night before, something like that, the Milwaukee Bucks triumphed over, was it the Thunder?
Yeah, OKC.
Did you watch that game, Abe?
I caught a good bit of it. The Thunder, very poor from three. That's why they lost.
Which is all it comes down to in the modern NBA.
Just chuck
right?
it up from three, and then, if you have a good night, you win. If you have a bad night, you lose.
The Celtics are shooting something like 50 fucking times a night or something from three. I think that's a little bit high, but like they are shooting like crazy from three this season. They're going to shatter the all-time record.
This is all the nerds' fault. All those stats people like, three is worth more than two. Just keep shooting from three.
Yeah. This is I'm showing pictures now of the celebration room that they'd set aside there in Vegas. Everything is covered in plastic. There's coolers full of
for the champagne.
Michelob Ultra. There's a bunch of champagne and
You think they won the pennant or something, right? Like it's like
big spread for the successful Milwaukee Bucks to win. And they chose not to take advantage of it whatsoever. So that is the legacy. So 2 years in now of the NBA in-season tournament is that the winning team elected to not go and do we're going to put on the T-shirts and we're going to put on the goggles and we're going to spray each other with a bunch of alcohol. This marks the first time that there's that old joke about how you can go to Africa and see all of the losing Super Bowl swag.
Yes,
that they
that's what I
print.
want.
Yeah.
For the first time, you're going to be able to go to the third world, or sorry, we don't say that anymore.
Developing
world, the less fortunate part of the world, and see championship swag from the winners. Because even the winners don't want their championship swag any longer.
Game recognized fame, though.
Right. And also, when you win a championship, there's a bit of time off. Like the Bucks have to be in, like they were in Vegas and they got to be in Cleveland on Friday, and so it's like you don't have a lot of time to celebrate. You just have to take your pictures and go. The one positive, I know there's been a lot of poo-pooing of this NBA in-season tournament. There are players who are barely hanging on to the roster who don't make, they make a ton of money for regular people, but they don't make a lot of money in the NBA world. They're like, a few $100,000. And they may not get all of it because it'll be prorated. They'll be sent down to the G League and whatnot.
Right.
So some players don't make all the money that like LeBron makes. And so if you make it to the finals and win the cup, you get like $500,000 per player. And so some of these, like last year with LeBron, this year with Giannis, they would say that one of the motivations, because who cares? It's like an in-season tournament. It's just some goofy made-up thing, right? But one of the motivations is like to get those players who don't make shit, relatively speaking, that $500,000 check.
Yeah, that check matters a lot to the third or fourth tier.
The fringe
of NBA player.
Yeah, they can buy a house.
Speaking of, the NBA finalized its plans for revamping All-Star Weekend, and they have determined that the winning team is going to get a bonus of like $125,000. So maybe that's a reason.
The one flaw there, I think there's no. I don't know why they just don't give. The NFL. There was no competition when they were actually playing the Pro Bowl, right? And then eventually they said, just let's have some goofy, gimmicky stuff for Pro Bowl weekend, right? We'll be like in Florida.
Yeah, now it's great.
Let's just let the Mannings run the show.
Yeah,
See what the fuck happens.
There isn't enough incentive for these Pro Bowlers. These are the upper tier of stars to like hit each other for real in Hawaii, right? So there's no way to juice it up to have some competition, so they just gave it up. The same problem with the NBA. These are the best players, right? So these are not like fringe players that you can incentivize by throwing them some money. There's not enough money to make it worthwhile. Somebody who's making max money, who's making like $250 million, $500 million. What is this going to do? This is like their break. Their families come over and their friends for that All-Star weekend. A lot of the old NBA players are there. So it's like a very festive, like let's all pass around and dunk and score 300 points each. Like, so there isn't. They keep trying to like make it competitive, but it's just like maybe just concede the point. Like, just make this like a festive thing. Do some gimmicky stuff, like they had like the WNBA and NBA 3-point contest, or some gimmicky stuff, and just go on with your day.
The teams will be picked by Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, and Kenny Smith.
Okay. So this is kind of fun.
In order to have a 4-team format, they're going to also let Candace Parker have a team, which will be the NBA Rising Stars rather than the official All-Stars.
This is the patriarchy, right?
Yeah. To me, like, I don't want to dump on the WNBA any more than is right or necessary. Why are you saddling Team Candace with the Rising Stars? Now,
they're
maybe
just making sure that we know that the patriarchy is strong.
Maybe the idea is like the young guns will be hungrier than the guys who are obviously the best players in the league, the 24 guys that make up the actual All-Stars.
Right.
But I don't think so. Like, I don't think that the young guns are going to outperform to that extent, right?
Well, how about we have a woman have a team? Well, no. Well, what if she has the team that, like, she picks her whole team last? Right. Like, well, okay, that's what she.
Maybe
that's good. That's fine.
Maybe they just went like a draft, and it went by seniority. So like the elder statesmen, they're like, oh, all right, Charles, who do you want? And then like Kenny, who do you want? Shaq, who do you want? And then like Candace just got out of the WNBA. Like you got to pick last, and the only thing that's left is just the Rising Stars slot. It just happens to look like it's like a man-woman thing. That should be their angle.
Yeah.
Last thing on basketball, the Charlotte Hornets ran a promotion at a basketball game recently.
That was going to be my thing, but yeah, it's not.
I don't know.
You go ahead and take the lead on this one, then, Abe.
So the Charlotte Hornets are not a good basketball team. And they were playing on Monday this week against the Sixers, and it's around Christmas time, right? And so they have a mascot, I think it's called Hugo, the Hornet, and named after a hurricane for some reason. He is pretending...
Can't be old Horny the Hornet.
Right.
Can't do that. So.
that could have worked. But he is dressed up as a hornet, dressed up as Santa Claus, right? So he's doing the Santa Claus.
Yes. No, I'm familiar with because like at Disney, Mickey has his different outfits.
Yeah. But it's just a
I
weird...
like the idea of Abe in particular describing. Okay, so there's a person, but it's wearing a big. It's blue fur. It's a blue fur hornet.
Yes.
But also it is Santa Claus.
Yes. Which has got to be confusing for the. So they're doing like a.
It's not confusing, Abe.
Okay, so they round up a bunch of kids who happen to be watching the game, right? And so I don't know. don't kids believe in Santa Claus? And like, what? This guy's a fucking hornet? I don't know. I didn't grow up around Santa Claus, so I don't know. Anyways,
The hornet is one of Santa Claus's helpers. He's not the real guy.
So you could put on a Santa hat, or I could put on a Santa hat, and I'm not dressed as Santa.
Right.
But you're
you know
just
it's me.
wearing the hat. I'm very aroused.
We have a hat.
Anyway, they trot out these kids to the center court, and some lady's like reading off something like, "Oh, this kid wants he wants to get better at NBA 2K or something, right?" So they're doing this whole thing, and their big reveal is that he's going to be gifted by the Hornet Santa Claus a PS5, which is a nice get for the kid, right? He's there
Quite
with
a
his
gift. It's like a $500 item.
He's there with his uncle, who's a season ticket holder to this poverty franchise for some reason, and lucky day for him. He gets a PS5. The cheerleaders are celebrating with him. Everybody's having fun. Very festive. Everybody's happy. And then they move them away from public view. And the people who are running this whole thing from the organization, they're like, yeah, we need that PS5 back.
We're gonna need the PS5.
We're doing a bit. Like, here's a jersey and fuck off.
No.
It was just a skit. They thought this is just a sketch. And
What kind of a fucked up sketch is that?
The punchline is that we look awesome in front of 18,000 people when all right. Honestly, 6,000 people.
Yeah.
And then also whoever else is in the television audience. But then we're gonna need the PS5 back.
So like you said, that's a pretty big gift, but not to a professional basketball team.
Right.
Like, that's nothing.
There must be some, because, okay, first of all, they actually had the PS5. So, like, are they repurposing it for all the home games in the month of December? Like, are they doing a bit? But, like, what's weird is that they're like, we'll give you the jersey. And the kid later was like, if they just gifted him the jersey, like, he didn't know what he was getting.
Right. That would be an awesome gift.
Right.
To get.
Oh, shit, I got a jersey. But to give somebody a PS5 and then to take it back is just, like, the most, like, boneheaded decision.
My favorite part of this story is that right before the kid ran out onto the court in front of all, on this basketball court, I don't know when they did it, halftime or like in between timeouts
during
or something.
the break,
And somebody from the promotions team tells the uncle he's not going to be able to keep the gift. So, like, there's an ass covering that happens right before the kid runs out onto the court to take part in this sketch, which he doesn't know.
Yes.
There's still even the best case scenario from the organization is, well, we told the uncle that he wasn't going to be able to keep the gift. It's like, but you didn't rope the kid in on this whole thing. And also, what's the joke? Right. Like,
what's the punchline?
There's got to be a punchline here, unless the punchline is, boy, aren't we awesome? We gave this kid a PS5.
But you must know that the kid is going to say something, right? The season ticket holder, father, uncle, whomever is going to say something eventually. This is not going to look good. Also, no one else is in the know. The cheerleaders think this is all on the up and up. They're like, "Hey, kid, good job. Let's take a picture." Like, everybody
congratulating him and doing selfies with the PS5 and the big-breasted cheerleaders and all of that. It's the best day of this fucking kid's life. And then Hornet Santa comes by and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna need that back."
I think they try to blame it on a rogue. I think they cleaned it up eventually to say they took ownership of it. But I think their first plan was to say like some rogue person from the promotion squad was taking that PS5 directly home.
This was definitely an intern. It's always an intern, right?
Fired.
The intern, the unnamed intern has been
Former
fired.
intern.
Yeah, it's got to be awkward getting back that gift, though, right? The kid is like, are you doing a joke? Like, he must be like awkwardly laughing. Like, no, seriously, kid, give me the fucking PS5.
I know it's not the same thing. Well, never mind. I'm not going to make the comparison. I won't. I've decided. I've self-censored.
Look at you. What restraint?
Tremendous restraint.
Yeah, that's great.
You have no idea how bad it was going to be. All right.
You'll tell me later, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's now time. That wraps up the WGAS News SportsBag. That was Who Gives a Shit Sports. It's now time to discuss the best game in every time slot, because this is, of course, after all, a playoff preview show. And I I'm excited. It's going to be fun to watch these four.
Also, it makes this particular segment very easy.
Yeah, this segment was an incredibly easy lift for me because the games are rather fortunately spaced out. It will be fun to watch these games. I don't have to worry about the University of Georgia Bulldogs at all because they don't play yet.
It's going to be the best weekend.
I'm strangely sanguine about our quarterback situation, even though our starting quarterback doesn't have an arm and our backup quarterback, now the starting quarterback, was likely viciously concussed. Probably doesn't have much of a brain, but I feel okay.
That's what he
about
had going into it, though.
Yeah.
South Georgia.
All right, Friday night at 8 o'clock on ABC and possibly also ESPN, we have Indiana at Notre Dame catching 7.5 points. 28 degrees at kickoff is the current forecast with possible snow also on the horizon. Obviously, that's what you're doing on Friday night. I don't know what you thought you were doing on Friday night, but you're watching the battle for Indiana supremacy there in South Bend.
I read somewhere that, Indiana is a basketball school, right?
Yeah.
They I don't even know where this football thing started for them, but and Notre Dame has been a big football program since forever. And I was reading this article or some comment somewhere that stated that a lot of Indiana people are actually Notre Dame football fans.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it's both, man.
Right.
Which
So,
makes sense.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense because if you told somebody 30 years ago in the expanded college football playoff in 2024, both Indiana and Notre Dame will be in a head-to-head, who would believe that? But I do wonder how those people, the conflicted. Do you go back to your alma mater? That's
the thing. It's people who went to Indiana.
Yeah, what do you do then?
I think that you are more likely to be a dedicated. Are you more? The question is, what is your identity, right? Are you a football person or a basketball person?
Or are you a football person or a Notre Dame football fan?
Yeah.
So many people only pay attention to their team. Most people. So if they grew up a Notre Dame football fan and then went to Indiana, it's no question.
I suspect that most Indianans are much more on the end of Notre Dame support than they are Indiana support.
Yeah, because all their history, they grew up Notre Dame fan. All of their memories are Notre Dame doing something, not Indiana doing something in football. So it's got to be weird.
Yeah, that is the steepest ticket of the weekend, by the way, is Indiana at Notre Dame. That is get in the door price of nearly $500 right now.
If Calvin went to UVA and then in some bizarre future UVA plays Georgia, he is a Georgia fan.
Right.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even. He was UVA has a football team since when?
Yeah.
Nope.
No, that's true.
All right, we might as well do we'll tie this in with our CIB Pick'em contest because we are forced to pick all four of the playoff games and then also one bonus game. So if you have not yet gotten your picks in, feel free to do so before Friday night. I've got Indiana plus 7.5 in this game. I am not willing to call Indiana outright, but I have a feeling that this is the sort of game, this is the sort of weather that Indiana team is built for.
Did you see what Kurt Signetti said about his quarterback?
No.
Oh, God, hold on. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
But bottom line, I will take Indiana plus the 7.5. I think this is a close game. I think they've got a halfway decent chance. I think that Notre Dame, though they ended up winning that game at USC by a couple of touchdowns, that was the result of 200 yards of taints in the final 4 minutes of that game.
Right.
And they largely, though they have run away with a lot of their season, have not been challenged much throughout the season. And Indiana is a pretty good football team, and I naturally default to assuming that Notre Dame is something of a fraud. So I'm going to take Indiana here.
I got the opposite of that. I got Notre Dame -7. That Ohio State game a few weeks ago that did not go too well for Indiana. I'm I don't know. I don't know how good Indiana is against decent competition. And so despite my uneasiness about Notre Dame in general, I think they're better than Indiana. And 7 is a decent number.
It's going to be an awesome atmosphere.
Oh, I'm hoping.
also.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah.
Freezing cold at night in South Bend is just going to be spectacular. Lori, what did you have?
Kurt Signetti said, I hope it snows 1.5 feet. We have a Canadian quarterback. Did you see how this guy threw the ball against Purdue? Their quarterback's Canadian.
That gives me much less faith in Indiana. Hearing
So I'm
Signetti.
picking Notre Dame to win. I deeply don't want to care about any of these games. I want to just watch them and enjoy it. So I picked the teams in every game. Did I pick the favorite? Not quite. I think Notre Dame will win,
Fair enough.
and I don't care.
In the past, I mean, I remember the Canadian ball was bigger than the NFL ball. I think they've gone back to where it's about the same.
But not in high school.
Are
probably.
you sure you weren't just smaller back then?
I recall it needed like a wider stance
Yeah.
to hold the.
This is a foot. He was in high school though, so
Okay.
maybe
not. Yeah.
All right. Then we move on to Saturday. That's the only Friday night game, obviously, worth watching. And they've cleared the schedule. There are no bowl games to worry about, I don't believe, on Saturday. It's just a playoff game, a triple header starting at noon. At Penn State, SMU travels from Southern Methodist. They're plus 8.5 on the road in Happy Valley. This is another frigid situation, 27 degrees and possible snow showers at kickoff at noon. This is a cheap ticket, by the way. I know that Happy Valley's kind of in the middle of nowhere in terms of fucking
No
getting
kidding.
there. But $44 in the door at Beaver Stadium there.
So, do you buy into the theory? I mean, this is bullshit online stuff, but there's some logistical thinking. Like, if you are a Penn State fan and you're confident that SMU is no match, right? You're thinking Penn State's going to be in the next round. And so, I would rather save my money for that, and that's why the tickets have collapsed. But I think that if that were true, why isn't that true of the Notre Dame or the other games, right? But somebody was offering that as a theory, maybe people are being strategic with their spend, and they're like, who cares about SMU? That should be a cupcake.
Yeah, but
victory.
I guess it's a couple $100 for a hotel room, and you probably have to get a hotel room a couple hours away because it's not a ton of stuff going on there.
Right.
But I don't know, fucking less than $50 to get in the door. I know it's a big stadium, but that seems strange to me. Maybe it's either they have absolute faith or they have no faith whatsoever. Obviously, it's one of those two. Who you got in this one, Abe?
So I have said that James Franklin is a fraud of a coach because he never wins whenever there's a big game. But they are favorites to win this. Usually they do okay when they are the better team on paper.
Yeah, it's when they play better teams than them.
Right.
That they do bad.
So basically they are they're never going to do better than where they're at, but they'll be able to beat teams that are lesser than them. And I think SMU is lesser, so I'm going to say SMU is going to keep it within a touchdown. It's 8.5, but I'm going to say SMU plus 8.5.
Lori?
Yeah, I think Penn State's going to win.
Lori's got Penn State. I've got SMU outright. I like SMU here.
Oh, man. James Franklin should be fired on the spot if he loses to SMU this weekend.
I've watched, I think, 6 quarters of SMU football this entire season, and 2 of them were very bad against Clemson.
Yeah, but they dug themselves out of that hole, though.
They did, and that's what I like. That offense, that quarterback is feisty. He runs around and slings it like crazy. I like SMU here. I don't trust Penn State whatsoever. Drew Aller's a pretty good quarterback, but
Oh, that would be the great thing about this weekend is that you're just enjoying it as a college football fan, so nothing can go wrong because Georgia's not playing. But it would just be hilariously embarrassing if I want to see a ISO cam. I know this is a TNT game. They need to have a TNT bonus, and they just have a James Franklin cam if they're down. I just want to see his face the whole game.
That's right. You can watch this one on TNT, or you can stream it on Max.
That's going to be weird.
Those are your options. All right, 4 o'clock. That game is over. It is now time for Clemson at Texas. This is the only double-digit game of the weekend. All of these games are a touchdown or more, but this one is 11.5 points Clemson is catching. on the road at Texas. This is a normal, nice, mild December game. It will be in the temperatures in the 50s at kickoff. Pleasant weather for that one. I've got Clemson plus the 11.5 here. I don't know that they can win as much as I like Texas's defense. I think they will make it difficult on Cade Klubnik and that Clemson offense, who put a bunch of points on the board against much, much lesser competition throughout the season. But anytime they ran into a halfway decent defense, had problems. So, but I think they'll keep it close enough, and that's a whole ton of points. So give me Clemson plus 11.5.
I when I made the pick, it ticked up to 12, but same thinking as you.
Oh,
Clemson.
sure it did, Abe.
So, my concern is that Clemson's just happy to be there, and Texas can break away late, and they won't be able to cover the 12. But I think Clemson has enough respect to keep it close. So Clemson plus 12.
Lori?
I think Texas will win because that's what I think. I also forgot to mention about the Penn State game. Josh Pate told us this week that the temperature at kickoff will be 28, and the average kickoff temperature for SMU's games has been 72.
Wow.
So that's interesting.
What was the weather in North Carolina for that ACC game? It was in the 40s, 50s. It wasn't this low, right?
It was cold.
Yeah, but it wasn't 28 cold.
It wasn't 28.
Yeah.
That'll be fine.
So yeah, I think Texas. I think Texas will win because they're not playing Georgia, and
Well,
they've beaten everybody.
they'll be happy about that. They're like, thank God we're not playing Georgia.
All right, and then the nightcap, 8 o'clock back on ABC. That last game, the two afternoon games are on TNT or Max. And then you can flip back over to ABC, ESPN for probably the game of the weekend, right?
Yeah.
The Tennessee at Ohio State is
It's the
on paper
7
and,
versus 8, right?
Yeah, it's the most exciting game.
Obviously
of the
the
bunch.
One to be interested in.
Tennessee plus 7.5 at Ohio State. This is another game that, though it's more expensive than the others, the get in the door price is still just $100.
Yeah.
And everything that I'm seeing online is that a lot of the secondary market is being gobbled up by Tennessee people.
Yeah.
The Tennessee takeover. Abe, did you see I don't know what map it is. I don't think it's Google Maps. Maybe Apple Maps. Is that a thing?
Yeah, Apple.
They managed to change the name of Beaver Stadium to Neyland North.
That's funny. No, I did
Very
not see
cute.
that.
Let's see. With Tennessee at Ohio State, like I said, it's a 7.5 points. My belief is that Tennessee is going to win this game outright. That one little 2-second GIF of Ryan Day on the field after the Michigan game, asking one of his passing players who seems to ignore him, what happened. You can see him mouth the words, "What happened?" or "What's happening?"
Or what's happening. It doesn't know.
Yeah, and that sort of sums up the entire thing for me. I'm not sure that he's still
He still doesn't know what happened.
whatever. Yeah, I'm not sure he knows exactly what's going on. The Tennessee defense is real good. They're certainly at least as good as the Michigan defense is, and I don't trust Will Howard to be able to play hero ball, as evidenced by what happened in that game and in others. And so give me Tennessee outright.
I also have Tennessee, although I wonder if that embarrassing loss to Michigan is kind of blinding the fact that Ohio State is still a good team.
Very good team. They're surely they're not going to call as stupid a game as they called.
They're not going to do
last
that.
time
Yeah.
out, right?
And it's been 3 weeks, right? So it's 3 Saturdays ago. It will be when they play on Saturday. Maybe reset. Maybe that Aaron Rodgers drug. Maybe have the whole team take it. Forget about what happened. Reset your ego or whatever, and they can turn things around. But I don't believe that Tennessee.
And Lori, you also have Tennessee,
I
correct?
picked Tennessee because it'd be funny. I don't care.
Yeah, it would be funny.
It would be funny. Again, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Ohio State wins this game. They have the superior talent. They certainly have. I don't know that they have better coaching. Josh Heupel seems to know what he's doing, but yeah, I think I'm just picking that because that is
It'd be
the outcome
funny.
that I would prefer. It would be funny. All right, and then my fifth game to round things out here, I'm going to take UNLV in the bowl game, which is happening tonight. I don't know if it's kicked yet. Doesn't matter. I've got UNLV minus the 3.5 points as my fifth game of the week.
I got my fifth game is on Sunday. The Bills that no one can beat. Minus 14 over New England. Should be a cakewalk, even though that's a lot of points in the NFL. You know, I just remembered something with this Tennessee thing. So in order for that head coaching matchup, I think we talked about a few weeks ago or a month ago, that Tennessee head coach and Notre Dame head coach, for that matchup to happen, for you to decide which...
the Stay Puffed versus the protein powder?
Yeah, I think the way the
Yes.
bracket works, the only way that happens now is if they both meet in the finals, right? Which is an impossibility, right? They're on the other opposite sides of the bracket.
Right. Let's not have that happen then.
Yeah.
'Cause we don't want to lose to Notre Dame,
No,
certainly.
no.
And then, Lori, you appear to have taken Florida.
Yeah, I Googled bowl games
Who are they playing?
schedule and scrolled down, and on Friday at 3:30 in Tampa, Tulane is playing Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl, the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. And I think Florida is 14 points better than Tulane, or not, but that's what I'm picking.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm just scrolling through. Can I adjust my fifth pick?
Go ahead.
These are way more fun
better
than
get it on
NFL
the
games.
record
That's
here.
right. Yeah,
Abe
on the
Harrison.
record, I did not see this Birmingham Bowl on Friday. Georgia Tech versus Vanderbilt, two frisky teams this year.
Right.
Is that this? This is this Friday?
The following. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. I
No,
guess I'll
that's
save it for
Save
next
it.
week.
Save it.
Yeah.
Save it
Yeah.
for next
Yeah.
time.
Okay, that's why I didn't see it initially. Okay, yeah, it's next week.
The Nerd Bowl, yes.
Yeah.
That'll be a good game. Tech
Yeah.
against Vandy. All right. That's it for the best game in every time slot. There are 4 time slots and only 4 games, so that makes it very easy for you and for me. Didn't really talk about the implications here, but of course Georgia will play the winner of the Indiana and Notre Dame game. I did not pick based on who I want Georgia to play because I'm not sure what my preference would be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me. It's not clear to me that one of them is obviously superior to the other. I guess just based on the number there at 7.5 points, it would be to Georgia's benefit to play Indiana. There's probably less future NFL talent on the Indiana football team than there is on the Notre Dame football team. So I guess we should be rooting for Indiana here just based on that. But also Notre Dame is a pretty reliable fraud and hasn't won anything of consequence in my memory. So either one would be fine with me. I don't have, unfortunately, Jimmy did not get his pick in for this week, so I'm afraid we'll have to wait another week for Jimmy Carter's presidential lock of the week. Don't know what's going on down there in Plains. Hope everything is well. Only 2 weeks left to make it through the end of this calendar year, Jimmy, and prove Abe wrong. Even more so.
Although, I mean, I'm not hearing much on this podcast. I haven't heard his grandson talk about it. Maybe he's already gone. No one's saying anything.
That's the claim? He might be already gone? How irresponsible of you to spread such rumors. We have a platform here,
That's
Abe,
right.
and our platform matters. You've been listening to Cast Iron Balls, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Lori's here too. We talk about sports. You can get more of us at brainiron.substack.com. You can also check out the website of Mark Gillig at tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from Mark and his band Tetramer. He composed our opening and closing themes. Hey, we already discussed the Charlotte Hornets and their Indian giving ways there with the PlayStation 5.
No.
That's such a harmless thing to say. I'm
No.
sorry. It is so far divorced from any known reality that
Okay.
to use the phrase Indian giver is no longer offensive. It's gone completely around the bend. It's sort of like gypsy. Like, I refuse to accept that I'm not permitted to say the word gypsy because it is somehow offensive. Like, who has actually had interactions with the people to whom we are referring
Well, people who've had things stolen from them.
Once in a while, even to this day, I will catch myself. I'm about to say, you've been gypped or I've been gypped, and I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to say that. Like, are you saying that?
I hear gypped all the time,
right? But I think that's like
that one has achieved escape velocity from whatever offensive thing it is meant to be offending. Also, right?
Right.
And I'm simply suggesting that Indian Giver has also achieved escape velocity from the thing that is supposed to make it offensive.
Yeah, there was like a subplot on Seinfeld about that.
Am I just redoing a Seinfeld bit when I say Indian Giver is fine?
I was going to say, which show was that? And it must have been Seinfeld.
God damn it. I'm going to have to cut all of that if I'm just doing an old Seinfeld bit there.
Because he had accidentally said awful things.
Yeah, I think he was like dating,
and she heard about him or something.
He was like dating somebody, and she wanted something back. It's like, you can't do that. Like that would be like a. And then he like it was like
the cigar store Indian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Abe, do you have anything else in the world of sports for us to discuss this evening?
So Netflix is getting in on all these sports doc business. You have the quarterback and the receiver, and they're showing the NFL this Christmas. And I just saw the article today that Netflix is also going to be getting in on the SEC doc business. So they have followed a bunch of SEC teams, not Georgia, not Alabama, not Ole Miss, but like, Tennessee, South Carolina.
I think it's like half of them, right?
Yeah,
like there's going to be eight teams featured?
Yeah, but not like I guess, the teams had the right to say no, and I guess maybe Georgia and Alabama. I don't know why Ole Miss would say no. It seems like that Lane Kiffin guy would be all over it, but enough teams have accepted. But what's weird is that they're following this 2024 season through this playoffs. And so I guess they're following Tennessee through this whole thing. But they're not releasing it until the summer of next year, which I guess maybe just to lead up to the next season, it makes sense. But like, I don't know why there needs to be that long of a turnaround period. Like, I know editing is difficult, but you need 8 months to do 8 episodes.
It doesn't exactly make me like super excited to tune in to find out what was going on last year's football season.
Especially if something great happened with Tennessee, right? Like
ESPN Films does such a good job.
Right, they do a good job. And also like the NFL Hard Knocks, they turn things around within a week, right? So like, I don't know, like it's a good idea to follow the teams, but I don't know why you need 8 months to produce it.
No. Lori, anything else in the world of sports catch your eye?
No.
I don't have anything from the world of sports, but I was checking out the smokinggun.com as though it were
Holy
1998.
Shit. I haven't been to the Smoking Gun website.
That's still there.
That's remarkable. Do you have a bookmark?
Headline, Colorado.
I have tons of bookmarks. Bookmarks are great.
Colorado driver busted for DUI crash explained to cops that he was a professional drinker. What I like about this is that he blew a .326 on the blood alcohol content.
Like, holy shit, that's a big number.
It's a big number. That is 4 times
holy shit.
The legal limit of .08. .326 is significant, and I'm surprised that he was not.
That is.
Well, he's a professional.
Maybe, you know what? I think, he must be a professional. I think I've mentioned this before, but like many, many moons ago at like a beer festival thing, they had some stupid little gimmick where you guess your blood alcohol content.
Right.
And I got it like on the money, like 0.16. And
Good
I was sloppy, like 0.16, right? And so like 326 is like ridiculous. Like this guy is a professional.
Chris had his buddies visiting in the Whitehall House in Athens.
They had a drinking contest.
And they had one of the pocket blood alcohol content blowers. And I want to say that they all puked or passed out around 0.24, I think was the number.
Yeah, it got up to 0.2. And then their livers stopped working.
Yeah, the best part is that they probably went to go to like Johnny's or whatever the next day to go drink Dollar Blue Moons for lunch at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock the next afternoon. And before leaving, they were like, oh, we should probably blow again just to see. And they were all still legally drunk. Like I think Chris was still like a 0.16 or something, like a 0.18. like a full 12 hours after he had passed out. Not great, probably. But I bring up the gentleman in Colorado, the professional drinker, not because of his rather impressive .326
And
BAC.
at the same time, unimpressive.
I mean, .326, and you're walking around and talking and
No, that's bad.
functional. It's sort of it. I think proves the point though that like
He's a professional. I get
something of a professional. The question is, Abe, what does a professional drinker drive? Because of course he only had this run-in with the police because he was driving at the time, and for some reason his car struck me as a particularly funny car for and appropriate car for a professional
I wanna
drinker
guess.
to be driving. You're both free to guess. I was going to turn it into a quiz. I elected not
Yeah.
to. But go ahead and give me your best guess as to what a professional drinker drives.
Pontiac Firebird.
Not a bad guess.
A Volvo.
A Volvo feels like you're leaning into the Colorado thing a little bit. It's clouding your judgment here. It's not. It's a year 2000 Nissan Sentra,
Okay.
which is the exact right call
Yeah.
for a professional drinker to be driving.
I may have missed it. This was as a result of an accident, or he was just weaving around? Like, did he get into a?
According to police, Campman plowed his 2000 Nissan Sentra into the rear of a Subaru stopped in traffic
'Cause
on a
you're in
street
Colorado.
in Wheat Ridge, a Denver suburb. The Subaru then launched forward and hit a third car. When cops contacted Campman, he allegedly smelled of booze. Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, no shit.
Had bloodshot eyes and his speech was slurred. When one officer asked another if there was an indication of drug use on Campman's part, the suspect piped up, "No drugs, man. Just a lot of drinking."
He's not wrong.
Campman would go on to explain that he was no amateur. "Matthew told me that he was a professional drinker while slurring his speech," a cop noted. He later described himself as a professional alcoholic while preparing to take a breath test that would eventually record a .326 BAC.
So he volunteered that.
Yeah. A search of Campman, who said he consumed 10 drinks, recovered an empty Jim Beam shooter in a pants pocket, while numerous empties and full Jim Beam shooters and several empty Modelo beer cans rolled around in his floorboards.
Wow, this guy's in a bad way. Holy shit.
Yeah. Anyway, check out The Smoking Gun for more content like that, including you can read about D's Nuts, legal name, D's Nuts, who was sentenced for a domestic fracas. My favorite part about the D's Nuts story is that is indeed his legal name, which he had changed in 2017 because he used to be
Those nuts.
He used to be D's Nuts, DEZ Nuts.
Naturally.
But he spelled it wrong when he went to have his name legally changed the first time from whatever it was. He had it changed to DEZ Nuts, and then in 2017 had it corrected once again to DEEZ Nuts.
Now, kids don't name themselves, right? So the parents or whomever reared him gave him that name. That's kind of
No. His name was Derek Lee Kroll.
Oh, so Nuts is not like a family name. Okay.
In 2011, this Mensa member changed his name from Derek Lee Kroll to D's Nuts. Unfortunately, it was spelled incorrectly, and 6 years later, he was saddled with his incorrect name, DEZ Nuts, for 6 years before getting it legally corrected to D's Nuts. Takes all kinds out there in the world. Abe, have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for you tonight then, and we will talk to you next time.
If you had to pick face tattoo or your name is officially D's Nuts, what do you go with?
You go with, I mean, at this point in my life, how often does it matter what my actual name is?
That's true.
I'm not in school, right? Nobody, it doesn't fucking matter. And you have to introduce yourself professionally, like a couple of times a year, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just, hey, I'm Jason or whatever the fuck. Right?
No
You
hiding
call
a
yourself
face
whatever you
tattoo.
want.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
JMU wins by 10, so you are
Yay.
1-0
Come
on
on,
the night.
run away. As far as so, are we doing Monday and that's it next week, or what? What's with the Christmas
I guess. We
Good
could-
question. What is the? We should do Monday for sure.
Because there's no
What's
game
happening next
right?
weekend? There's no college games.
Yeah, so like
the weekend.
it would be like we did last week, just the
we
Monday.
could just do Monday.
When does the next round of the playoff go? Not
New
until
Year's Eve.
Not until New Year's
yeah,
Eve. Yeah.
We could do it over the weekend or Monday or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, but they also are. They're not just mere benefactors of the system. They are participating through lobby money. I'm sure there's like millions of dollars that they threw into the system to make sure that they get their carve outs and they can make their money. So it's not like they're hurting. They're like,
Yeah,
oh,
but I mean, I get it. It's a big pile of money, but
it is a lot of money.
what are we? It's also it's a big pile of money that is skimming the fat off the top of an absolute ocean of money that we spend, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not. That's what drives me nuts. It's like it's just that, like we should be mad at everyone,
Right.
and
But
for some
yeah.
reason it's sort of the brilliance of Obamacare in some ways is it by forcing everyone to participate in an insurance market, you're guaranteeing that all of the ire about health coverage in this country goes to those that provide the coverage. And they don't even they do nothing. They're literally just middlemen. They are government mandated middlemen, money changers. That's it. And it's like, you know what? People have hated the Jews for millennia, largely because they've always been associated with being the money changers, right? Like, so what if we make a new, like, what if we make a
new Jew.
Yeah, make a new Jew. Like legally make a new Jew. And it's going to be the insurance companies.
A new Jew.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.